Olivier Serrois-Almeras. I'm the Consul General of France, and it is both a real honor and a rare privilege for me to welcome you all here this afternoon at the Embassy of France. I want at this stage salute the Ambassador of Costa Rica, la proviseure du lycée Rochambeau, and all my colleagues who are in this room. Please be all welcome at the French Embassy in this room dedicated to French-American friendship, dedicated to debate, dedicated to exchanges. What brings us here this afternoon is our common wish to share a vision and a feeling of scientific excellence. From the 70s to the early 90s, the next frontier was to be the internet. And I want at this stage express our warm gratitude to Robert Kahn for being with us today. He will moderate an open Q&A session after Mr. Sifakis' intervention. Robert Kahn, as you all know, is the CEO of the CNRI, Corporation for National Research Initiatives, which is a nonprofit. And mainly, he was recognized as one of the fathers of the internet, together with Vinton Cerf. Among other awards he received, I want to mention in particular the National Medal of Technology and Innovation, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, Queen Elizabeth Prize for Engineering, and of course, his Turing Award in 2004, which is, as you all know, of course, the Nobel Prize of Computer Science, which gathers us today. Today, the new frontier is the Internet of Things. How can we trust the Internet of Things that will be surrounding us and take vital decisions for us? This is precisely the question Joseph Sifakis, Professor Sifakis, has been dealing for years. And he will speak to us in a few minutes to explain us the challenges that are linked to this challenge, to these questions. Pasteur had this sentence saying that science has no citizenship. I fully share this view, except when it comes to recognize French talent. Talent as you, Professor Sifakis, the work of whom we, the French, are obviously so proud of. Let me remind everyone that you were born in Greece before coming to France and before becoming a French citizen in the 70s. You graduated from National Technical University of Athens and also from University of Grenoble. You're now an emeritus senior researcher at the CNRS, the French National Center for Scientific Research. You are the founder of the Verimag laboratory near Grenoble, and you are professor at École Polytechnique de Lausanne. You also are a member of the French Academy of Sciences, member of the French National Academy of Engineering, and commander of the French Legion of Honor, which is the highest French distinction. Last but not least, and I know what it means to you because we talked to it a bit earlier, you are the one and only French researcher to have received the Turing Award, with two co-recipients, Edmund Clarke from the Carnegie Mellon University and Alan Emerson from the University of Texas in Austin. The only one to have received as a French this yearly award, which was created in 1966, and which is once again considered as the Nobel Prize of Computing. Professor Sifakis, I will now give you the floor, or maybe to you, Mark, before, and I wish once again to you a very good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Olivier. Last week, I was invited for dinner by a colleague that is becoming a friend. And one of the guests asked me one question. What is your best memory of these 3 years you have spent in DC? And right now, I want to say that it is today. It is today because I'm very proud of being surrounded by the wisest and the brightest person in my discipline. So I will certainly be very brief so that I will leave the time for them to talk. And I'm looking forward to what they're going to say. Just very briefly, I'm Mark Domas, and I've been working at the embassy at the Mission for Science and Technology since 2012, and I'm in charge of the information science and technology. And in the name of the Mission for Science and Technology, I would first like to thank Joseph Sifakis for accepting to speak to us this evening, and Bob Kahn for accepting to moderate the discussion that will follow. Our General Counsel has been very thorough, and I thank him. And he mentioned the internet that was co-invented by Bob Kahn. And he also mentioned that the internet has changed our life in so many ways. We are now eager to learn what we should expect for the Internet of Things in the future, and under what circumstances, under what conditions should we expect that. Next, I would like to thank our partner for this event. First, the Internet Society, that was co-founded by, guess who? Bob Kahn, and that is broadcasting live today on, guess what? The Internet. Second, the CNRS, and the CNRS is a major actor in France, and we are working with them regularly through its North America office in Washington. Third, I would like to thank also the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, where Professor Sifakis holds a professor chair. Sorry about the repetition. Last and not least, I would like to thank the press office that have helped us set up this event, and the Maison Française, where we are sitting today. Thank you very much, all of you. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor, as promised, to Professor Sifakis, so that we can proceed with the matter at hand today. Thank you very much.
Let me check the micro. Do you hear me? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's really a pleasure to give a talk about the Internet of Things, about the Internet in the country of the Internet, the United States. So this afternoon I will try to explain the vision regarding the Internet of Things, and also to show that this vision, in order that it be implemented, we need a lot of research and development, and this will not become a reality if we don't produce new results and research. Okay, so in this slide I show what I call the ICT evolution or revolution. You know, computing is a very young discipline. The foundations have been laid in 36 by Alan Turing, and then things went very fast. You have the first computers in 45, and I think an important keyword to understand this evolution is convergence. We have convergence of computing with commercial applications, convergence between computing and telecommunications. This opened the way to the web and the internet, and then you have embedded systems here in the 90s, convergence between computing and physical systems, and what is anticipated is the grand revolution, that is the Internet of Things, which is the convergence between embedded systems and the internet. What I would like also to emphasize is that today we have systems, smart systems everywhere, embedded systems everywhere. We have more than 1 billion of embedded systems deployed over the planet, and the dream is to build global services and automate these services in order to address global challenges. The problem is how, for instance, to manage resources, how to predict events, how to have an intelligent and smart world. And this is really the challenge behind the Internet of Things. Now, what I would like also to explain is that the interest in computing shifted from software to systems, and I would like to explain a bit this difference between software and systems. So a system is composed of software and hardware, sorry, and the system is used to control complex processes usually. I would like to say that more than 95% of the chips produced, of the processor produced, are embedded. So here what counts in this interaction is the reaction speed of the system, okay, and this depends on the characteristics of the hardware. So the problem is how to design systems that are reliably control complex environments. And the problem here is that we have to understand this complex interaction between the system and the environment. And it's not a problem only of dealing with complex data and algorithms. Okay, so what happened over the past 10 years is that we have a break with traditional computing systems. So the technology you find in your laptop or in your server, in the servers we are using, in the embedded systems we have technical requirements such as these I have listed. The list could have been longer here. You want systems to be reactive. So reactivity is the property that they respond within a guaranteed delay. So like in a flight controller, this is a property that your laptop, for instance, does not satisfy. I mean, when a command is executed, the delay may be arbitrarily long to get a reply. Autonomy also is a very important requirement. Autonomy means that the system will be working for a long time without human intervention. Perhaps we can turn this off, okay? And autonomy, so in particular, means that you have microcontrollers in your car. You have more than 50 or even 80 processors or microcontrollers in your car. If there is a problem with your laptop, you will restart your laptop, but you cannot restart the microprocessors you have in your car, okay? And autonomy means also optimal power management. When you are developing the software of a mobile phone, you take care so as to use all the resources in the best possible manner to increase the autonomy of the batteries. And then dependability, scalability, and other requirements. And it's important also to understand that embedded systems are in mass market products, and the mass market products, okay, you have some open competition for that. And when you develop such products, you are targeting an economic optimum. When you, for instance, you design again a mobile phone, the objective is not to produce the best possible mobile phone, it's to produce a mobile phone that is good for a given market. Okay, so what I would like to emphasize here is that we have no theory to build systems that meet given requirements, functional and qualitative requirements at acceptable costs, and this is something I am going to explain. So this is an outline of my talk. I'm going to talk briefly about the Internet of Things and mainly the scientific challenge around the Internet of Things. So the main part of my talk will be dedicated to the scientific and technical challenge. And then I will finish with a discussion. So before talking about the Internet of Things, I would like to explain a phenomenon that is very important. It's technological convergence. Today we talk a lot about convergence. What convergence means, it means that you have some synergy between actors, technology, to achieve a global result. So here we are talking about technological convergence. In particular, we mean the convergence of networks. Today we have a very heterogeneous networking infrastructure, and the dream is to have a single unified networking infrastructure based on some protocol, probably the IP protocol, which is the basic protocol for the internet. And we talk about convergence of devices. So today, you are using your mobile phone not only to give calls, but to read your email, to monitor your health monitoring, or to see movies or whatever. We talk about convergence of services, and the convergence also, and this is something that is seamless. I mean, the broad public does not see this. You have a lot of activities interactions between agencies, institutions that produce standards to achieve convergence between policies and harmonize standards, regulate the contents, define what is the quality of service in the internet. Okay, so the results of this convergence is that you have also a deep transformation of the big software companies, and I would like to give a few examples just to illustrate how the economy I mean, the main players, the ICT market have changed. Okay, let me consider just an example. IBM, 10 years ago, they've been selling separately hardware or software. And 5 or 6 years ago, they said, we're struggling for a smarter planet, whatever it means. And they say, well, the planet should be instrumented. We have the ability to measure, sense, the exact state of everything, and then it should be interconnected, and we have a lot of networks of different types to do that. And of course, we would like the planet to be intelligent, meaning that we can collect data, analyze data, and predict events, and also optimize resources and address global challenges. Okay, so you see that the vision changed. Okay, it's not to sell technology, to sell software, hardware, it's okay. And another example that is very interesting is how Google, a company like Google, has been transformed. They were present in the service market, and they acquired, as you know, Motorola Mobility. This happened 3 or 4 years ago. For $12 billion, and 1 year later, Microsoft, acquired Nokia, and later Google sold back Motorola to Lenovo for $3 billion. So you see here the difference of almost $9 billion. These were IPs that the American government did not allow Google to sell to Lenovo, which is currently a Chinese company. And more recently, last year, I think, yes, Google acquired for $3-something billion a company that was producing thermostats. Okay, you understand that the companies that were selling services, software now become service and devices companies, and this is a remarkable transformation. So this is. Again, this is from an article published in Time magazine, I think last year, and it's about the Google universe. So probably you cannot read this, but I can tell you that the standard, the usual, what used to be the mainstream business of Google is a small portion of this universe. So you can find cars, you find energy, you find health, you find a lot of sectors where now Google, they have the ambition to be present, and you see that their ambition is limited, and this is the cover of this issue of Time magazine. Okay, so this about convergence and how all the business and the world of the ICT has been transformed because of this vision of the Internet of Things, though I'm going to talk about the Internet of Things. So The idea behind the Internet of Things is very simple, very attractive. It's a kind of anthropomorphic view of all the systems. You, as in your body, you have senses, sensors, actuators, and then you have some hierarchically structured system with some neural network that is gives signals to your brain. So the brain here is the cloud, as you can see, and then you have plenty of devices that the data are collected, sent to the cloud by using all these heterogeneous networks, and the cloud can analyze the data, and of course, based on this analysis, you can give back orders to all these devices and orchestrate their operation. This is the vision, and let me try to analyze a bit this and give a few examples. So people talk about smart energy or smart grids. The idea is that we will we already have different sources of energy that have different characteristics. You have solar energy, you have hydraulic energy, okay, nuclear energy, and you have to combine all these sources that have different characteristics to make the best possible use. And for this, of course, you will be using, and this distribution will be organized, for instance, at the level of one continent. For instance, if you have very sunny weather in France and you have bad weather in Germany, France could sell energy to Germany. Okay, so you see, and all this distribution should be organized by using sensors, actuators, and also, of course, intelligence provided by the cloud, because, okay, you can predict weather, or you have some statistical data that allow you to predict something. Okay, let's see if here I have another example. Smart factories. Okay, here the idea is that you will have robots and you can send models of objects that can be produced. I'll talk later about that. And then, of course, smart highways. Probably you've seen this. So you will have highways that will be equipped to follow the traffic, and okay, so collect the data and to give orders to the drivers or instructions. Okay, how to avoid congestion, or if you have problems with the weather. Smart vehicles, or already vehicles are smart enough. I think they are. They have. Today, 20% of the cost of a vehicle is its electronic equipment, and this is going to increase. Okay, and then smart houses also why smart houses? To manage energy here locally. You may have some local production of energy, and you can have different sources also of different providers. And the idea, for instance, is that you have a system that is smart enough to start your washing machine at 3 in the morning just because, okay, you have the best rates. Smart safety or active safety for vehicles. So the vehicles, you have systems that take over when there is a risk of accident. But you've probably seen Google cars, okay, driverless cars. So probably in the future we will have driverless cars. You take your car, you give the coordinates, you want to drive from here, I don't know, to Baltimore, and okay, this you will be reading your newspaper, okay, when the system drives you to Baltimore. A lot of health applications also in farming and agriculture. Here they are talking about smart pills that you ingest, and then they go through the tubes here and take some measurements and send the data to your hospital, etc. Okay, now the important question is whether this vision is achievable and how much of this is achievable. Okay, here it is important to note that we will have a hierarchical structure, and at the edges of the structure we will have devices equipped with computers, embedded computers, some local control loops, data sent to the cloud, And also, of course, users will be, users will have services accessible through their iPhone or through their laptop. And so it's a very complex system. I think that, okay, what is easy to achieve is what people call today the human Internet of Things, which be a slight adaptation of the Internet as we know it today. There is a part of this vision implies that we will have some services, autonomous services, without a human loop. If we want to be efficient, we will need some services. And I think that the problem is that the current infrastructure, internet infrastructure, is not secure enough. And you know there are a lot of security problems. And also, we cannot guarantee reaction times. So if we want, for instance, to control distantly I don't know, industrial processes, and we want a high degree of security, of dependability. This is not achievable. And so this is the idea of the industrial Internet of Things. And there is a consortium that has been established. It's led by General Electric, many important companies that work on the development of this industrial Internet of Things. So the key idea here is that they want an infrastructure that is more secure and more time predictable, and they started working, I think 2 or 3 years ago. You can visit their site here. And these are slides from General Electric that show this, illustrate this idea. So integration of services. So you have intelligent devices, systems, intelligent decisioning. This is the industrial world, and the benefits are the anticipated benefits are optimization of resources. And this is again another slide from General Electric that shows this famous loop where you are collecting data from machines, from devices. You collect the data, you have special kind of data systems, industrial data systems. And then you analyze this data by using, big data analytics. And according to the results, you are able to inform here a human operator that can change some parameters, and that will have some impact on the behavior of the machines. Okay, so this is, I hope now that I explained well enough the idea around the Internet of Things. And now let me talk about the scientific and technical challenges. And I think that the ideas regarding Internet of Things, you can find them today in the press, in the media. Okay, so I think a key issue in order to achieve this vision is design, is system design, computing system design. And what I would like to explain is that in contrast to classical systems engineering, computing systems engineering is not a mature discipline. Okay, so if I am, say, a civil engineer and I want to build a bridge, I have theory, and the theory is provided by classical physics, mechanics, that allows me to build a bridge that will not collapse for centuries with a very high probability. Now, regarding computing systems, I don't have such a nice theory. And one reason is that computer science is a very young discipline, as I explained, but there are deeper reasons. So science is lagging behind the technology, and so we are building complex systems as we've been building cathedrals, say, in the Middle Ages, okay? So by some process that involves a lot of risks. Now, I would like to say a few words about design and explain why design is an important concept in engineering. So design is about building artifacts, and whenever you build an artifact, so the example illustrates, building, cooking a pie. So you have some desires here, some requirements, and then these requirements you can express in your natural language. And then you have to give a recipe, a program here, that is a procedure that says what you have to do in order to cook a pie. And once you have this, you can choose the ingredients. So you have two important steps. One is what I call proceduralization, and the other is materialization. And these two steps, it's important also to notice that for the same recipe, you can have products, pies of different quality, okay? And this pattern is followed whenever you build an artifact, whatever, a building, an aircraft, or computers and computing systems. You start from requirements that are formulated in some natural language. Engineers read the requirements, have to understand the requirements, write a software, and then they choose an execution platform and they generate a code on which they run the software. And of course, what they want is that what you get finally in this chain meets the requirements. So the key issue here is correctness. So correctness means that the system you get here satisfies the requirements, okay, that express your needs. Now, for systems, I'm talking for systems, mixed hardware, software systems, you have two different types of requirements. Trustworthiness requirements that express the fact that the system you build will behave as expected despite any problems that may appear in his life. So for instance, typically for a computer, you can have problems with the hardware failures, but also you may have design errors, and I hope you make the distinction between error and failure. Okay, error is a logical error, and failure is a defect of a material, okay? And then, of course, you may have disturbances from the environment, and you may have problems with attacks, external malevolent actions, okay? So this is the issue of security here. This is related to safety, okay? And this is related, okay, to functional errors. Now, I can have theory to design systems that are very, very trustworthy, but still this is not enough. I need that the theory allows me to, to have systems that can be developed in a cost-effective manner. And this is the issue. This is described by the requirements, the optimization requirements. And I don't want to give details about that. Performance means how well the system behaves with respect to its potential users and the resources. So the resources here is the cost of the resources, so it's storage efficiency, etc. But what you should understand is that the two types of requirements are antagonistic. So if I want to have a system that is very, very trustworthy, for instance, as in avionics systems, I will use techniques like redundancy, I will use error correcting codes, and I will need more resources, more money. And so this is a problem when you design a system, and this choice between having systems that are very trustworthy but cost a lot of money or optimize the resources is something that characterizes the state of the art in system design today. So today, when we design a system, and we have very distinct approaches and schools, you may wish to design systems that are critical, so I hope you understand what critical means. If they fail, then there may be a threat for human lives or security. Security means that you may lose data or you may lose money because of human attacks. So you have critical systems and another class of systems, the other extreme that we call best effort systems. So when you typically develop web-based applications, you don't care so much about security or safety. You care about how many resources you use And this is an important difference in the approaches also. You develop such systems, and you have some intermediate classifications here, for instance, mission critical systems. So what is important here is to understand that when you design such systems, their development costs a lot of money. And here you have very stringent requirements. For instance, for a civilian aircraft, you require that you have less than 10 to the minus 9 failures per hour, okay? And this should be, okay, guaranteed by somebody. Otherwise, you don't have the approval of the certification authorities for the aircraft to fly. Here, the probability of failure is 10 to the minus 6. So when an astronaut is on a rocket, he knows that he's 1,000 times less reliable. Less reliability than. But why he takes this risk? Because of course this will last only I don't know how many hours. And okay, if we want to make this as safe as this would be too heavy, or this would cost too much money. So give it up. Okay. So today the situation is that whenever we have systems that are working loops or okay are performing important tasks, then you may have a lot of problems. Some of these problems appear, you can read in the media, you can read in the press, are reported in the media. Banks are losing a lot of money because of vulnerabilities. They don't talk so much how much money they are losing. So the situation is not very good in my opinion. And regarding the internet, my main concern is security. And just let me show you some 3 recent problems, related to attacks. Probably you've read this. This is September last year. Of course, you've heard about that, okay? Probably you've heard about that. So you have attacks of different kinds. Here you have a malware that is, so the malware, here it's spyware. So it's a virus that is hidden in a system and collects data and transmits data. Okay. So security is a main concern. Now, to go back to this, to what I said about the cost of developing high confidence systems. And I think it's very important to understand that today there is a divide. Small systems, they cost a lot. We can guarantee their properties, and very large systems for which we cannot guarantee any property, safety or security. Okay. Now, this is a very interesting slide figure provided by DARPA that shows how much costs the development of high confidence systems. So here in this axis you have increasing complexity. Here you have exponents of 10, and the complexity is measured in lines of source code. And here you have development costs in some logarithmic scale also. So you see that for some class of systems, here this is aerospace systems, you have some exponential explosion of costs. And this is the case for any type of systems if you have stringent constraints of safety and security. And this is a projection. So if this exponential increase law is valid, is applicable by year 2060 or 70, to buy an aircraft, you will need all the defense budget of the US. And you understand that this is something very, this is a reason of concern for people who need absolutely high confidence systems. Okay, now let me, so I talked about system design, and I would like to talk about very quickly about 3 scientific challenges, cyber-physical systems, component-based systems, and finally intelligent systems. And okay, now you've probably heard about cyber-physical systems. Where the idea comes from? The idea comes from the fact that now we have more and more integrated computers within electromechanical systems. And the idea is to have components, to have bricks that where we co-design the brick by taking into account the physical properties, the electromechanical properties, and also computational properties. And when we compose bricks, we compose the cyber characteristics and the electromechanical characteristics. This is the idea. And this is possible because, okay, we have the evolution of technology enables this. We have a miniaturization of components. We have very good networks, and we have also advances in real-time embedded systems. I think the best way to explain this idea is to give you an example, okay, about how today we can design cyber-physical systems. So let's consider this example. So I want to design an engine. I want to design an engine, so today you have tools where you give the dimensions of the pistons, of the shaft, you give the geometrical dimensions, and then you have the 3D model of this object. And then you can say, well, this material, this is made of this material, this is made of this material. You give the thermal properties, you compute the mass, okay, and you apply the laws of physics. And then you say, well, here also I have some sensors and I have some computers that control. So here you can build a virtual model that takes into account, okay, of your motor, that of your engine, that takes into account all the characteristics, the cyber characteristics and the physical characteristics. You can run it and you can test the virtual thing, okay? And that's the idea. And I think that in the future it will be possible also to for you to design your own car. To design your own car, you will have software. So you go to a site, say General Motors site, and you have components. You compose your own car out of components, and then you build a virtual model. You try your car. You are happy with your car, the behavior of your car, or the characteristics it has. You send the virtual model to the factory, and you, with a check, of course, okay, and your car, the car you have designed, okay, and this is, I mean, this is an idea that extends the concept of 3D printing, okay. Today we have 3D printing, okay, but it will be possible to design very complex objects and to test them virtually and then to order them. In order, of course, to achieve this, we need tools. We need tools to build virtual objects. So here it's a vehicle that is built out of components by considering the cyber characteristics, electromagnetic characteristics, thermal fluidity, etc. So you build this object, you test it, and then you send it to a factory, to a foundry, and you produce this object, okay? And this is a vision that I find personally very, very, I mean, it's, anybody will be a creator, okay? You will create objects, you will design objects, and this is something fantastic. Okay, now the second challenge is components. And here I would like to say that in any discipline, engineers build complex artifacts from a limited number of types of components. So if I am an electrical engineer, I will be using, say, 3 different types of components to build electrical circuits. Okay, so the problem is that for computing systems, we cannot have any theory because for the moment we have a large variety of components. We don't have a classification of components, and I believe that we should strive to have a theory about how to build systems out of components. This remains to be done, and have just a typology of components. This is not enough. We need theory to be able to build systems that meet given properties from libraries of components. That's what engineers are doing today, but in some very ad hoc manner, and we need theory for that. So let me explain this idea. This is the idea of compositionality. So I have components. These are bricks, and I can glue them together, say, to build a complex system, a compound system. And so I have certified bricks, I have certified components. And if I have theory about how to glue them, I can infer that the composite system also is healthy. You see it's smiling. And today we don't have theory to do that. And we don't have theory to guarantee very, very important properties like, for instance, deadlock freedom for people who understand what it means, deadlock freedom for systems. And okay, so we need theories about how to build systems out of components, and also we need, this is not enough, we need what we call composability rules. And so if I consider the previous example, I have bricks, they are smiling, so I can build a wall. However, the wall should not be too high somehow. So if I bring too many bricks here, I may jeopardize a property of a component. And this is, okay, I mean, this is very metaphoric what I'm talking about, but this is a real problem for engineers. This is a real problem for engineers. Engineers have systems, and, okay, do not create systems from scratch. They change incrementally the systems, okay? They bring new features or they remove features. So it's very important to have some stability of the properties. If I bring new features, that everything that is not jeopardized, does not collapse. And unfortunately for computing systems, we have such problems. And I would like to mention a project developed by Google Research, which I find a very interesting project, technologically and scientifically speaking. The idea is to democratize smartphones. So this project is called ARA. And the idea is to have, to buy initially a skeleton, and that you can plug different features in the skeleton to have your own customized smartphone. And the idea is very simple, very natural. And if you Google ARA project, you will see that there is a lot of debate about whether this project is a realistic one. And I hope that they are successful, but I don't think that they can. I mean, they should make a modularized Android, and this is, I think, technically, this is not possible. So let me finish by talking about intelligence. And this is perhaps the most important objective intelligence. Here I would like to say that there is even recently there has been a lot of debate about what is in artificial intelligence. You have people such as Elon Musk who said, okay, this, and then other people like Stephen Hawking, this, and Bill Gates, artificial intelligence is a threat. Okay, so personally I believe that there is no threat from artificial intelligence. For years I keep saying to my students that machines are dummy, okay, completely, okay, because I mean they will do whatever they are instructed to do, okay, and I'm really surprised and that people do not react or the media do not react. But I know that the public loves all these sensational stories about imaginary threats. So, okay. And now the important question is, what is intelligence, or what I understand by intelligence? So for me, intelligence is a property of the human mind only. Okay, machines are not intelligent, so it's but they can exhibit some intelligent behavior, and I would like to explain this. The big difference between the human mind and machines is that machines can do operations very fast and very precisely, okay? No doubt about that. And the human mind cannot do that, okay? So based on this difference, we can use machine to solve very quickly some problems that are to compute, to explore solutions in a large space of solutions. So you have examples like this. So for me, these examples are not examples of intelligent behavior. We have just supercomputers that explore a huge space of solutions. Okay. Now, what can be intelligent behavior how real intelligence or kind of intelligence machines can help with the problems we are facing in the Internet of Things. Okay, so two examples. One is what we call knowledge-based engineering, and this is a challenge. For the moment, it's only a vision, okay? I think it's very important that, so I hope you understand the concept of knowledge and the difference between knowledge and information. Knowledge is information that allows you to understand the subject or solve a problem. So it's information that you can use in a context to solve a problem. For me, a Pythagorean theorem is knowledge, okay? Or an algorithm is knowledge, okay? Because you can use it to solve a problem. Or a recipe, cooking a recipe is knowledge, okay? Now the problem is how machines can learn to distinguish knowledge from arbitrary information, and how they can use it in different contexts to solve problem. And this would be really a sign of intelligence. And we need such intelligence for the Internet of Things. So the idea is to formalize the knowledge somewhere in the cloud, okay, to have all the theories there, and then to have machines that can combine these, and to have users of the Internet that can ask not to do a search according to some given keyword, but to formulate some sentences, and the network will make an exploration to bring meaningful answers to such questions. So this vision is called the semantic web. For the moment, a lot of money has been spent. I don't have seen so far any convincing result, but this is not a reason for not to be optimistic. The other aspect of intelligence that I think is very important is adaptivity, and here I've seen many important applications. So this is something I would like to explain. So I think that the idea that we can have systems that are completely flawless is an illusion, is a mirage. Okay, so we should live with systems that may have flaws, may have problems. The key issue is how to have a kind of controller, to equip them with a kind of controller that monitors the system's state, and if there are problems, then okay, the system is designed in such a manner that it has some parameters here that you can modify so as to mitigate the effect of these flaws. Okay, so just to give you an example, you have a threat, and you detect this, and you have some countermeasures, or you stop some processes. Okay, now this controller should be very clever and is adaptive. And let me explain how an adaptive controller works. So the ideas come from control theory, come from artificial intelligence, And the idea is that an adaptive controller combines, in fact, three functions. One is, the central function is management of objectives. So here, as in your mind, you have a set of objectives that correspond to your desires, to what you want to achieve. And okay, assume that at some state of my mind, I have these objectives here, and I have a model of the external world and make an evaluation according to some criteria, and I can choose the best possible objective. So once I pick up one objective, then I will activate the planning function. So say here I decided to go to the stadium, so I have to find out how from my home to go to the stadium. And once now I experience this, then I learn something, and I make an evaluation of this experience, and from learning I can modify here some parameters. So here the models of the reality are fairly complex. They have parameters, and I can modify the parameters, and next time perhaps I will not choose to go to the stadium, I will make another choice, okay? So this is the way your mind also works, and this principle has been applied to networks, to data mining systems, to multimedia systems to control quality. And this is an idea that I find very attractive and very promising. Now it's time to conclude with a short discussion. So I think that the Internet of Things, as I said, is the ultimate vision. This will change drastically our life, and I hope you understand this. Now the question is to what extent all these ideas will be applicable, and this is not clear to me. I think that we will be hitting some, what I call the integration wall, but I leave it for the discussion. So Gartner is a very well-known analyst, so they've been supportive of the idea. Now, it's important to say also that the same Gartner last year in August, they said, well, the IoT is the most overhyped technology in development today. And the reason they said this is that because we don't have, okay, the effort of the standardization, especially in the area of the networks, is not progressing well enough. I think it's interesting also to look at this figure that is provided by these analysts that plots different technologies, okay, with respect, so these are expectations, and this is the time to maturity of the technology. So you see that the Internet of Things is here. So the idea is that given technology, okay, is in the very beginning, the expectations are low, the technology is okay, is accepted by some people, is supported, okay, the idea, and then the expectations increase, and then you have a decrease of expectations and a phase of, say, disappointment or disillusionment, and then it will mature, if it survives, of course, because that there are technologies that die up, okay? And will be mature and adopted, reach the plateau of productivity, okay? So according now to the analysts, the Internet of Things is here, so we'll see how this is going to evolve, okay? I think that here I agree with the analysts. There is a problem. We have a very heterogeneous network infrastructure. So here you see the infrastructure. Here you see the range, and here you see. So what's that? So this is wireless body area network, wireless personal area networks. This is local area network, and here you have wide area network. And so the problem is how to make them cooperate, and they say that to have something homogeneous, This is more recent technologies. This is near field communication. And the emergence of this infrastructure is likely not to happen before 10 years, so let's see. And another problem, as I said, is security. So an obvious question is, do I have to connect anything, things that are connectable? If I increase the connectivity, then I increase the potential for security threats. So in my opinion, today we cannot guarantee the security and the dependability in the network, and this is a threat. So there are scientific and technical limitations, of course, and this I can explain if you have questions. But also I think that we don't have strong enough regulations and policies, and I think that this is the responsibility of the governments, of the institutions, of the bodies that define the standards to enforce some policy that will improve the security of the systems. And I would like also to say that in some cases it's sad to see that even officials, people who have responsibilities say, okay, perhaps it's a good thing to have backdoors in systems, because if you have backdoors in systems, okay, these backdoors will be discovered by cyber criminals. Okay, it's obvious to me. Now I would like to finish with 2 slides about system design and emphasize the important advocate design as a very, very important activity. So, of course, everybody understands the role of science and how important science is. So, because science allows you understanding the phenomena here, okay? But design is, I believe, is equally important, because design allows you to use all the formalized knowledge and build artifacts that meet given specifications. And I think that today the design of computing systems through cyber-physical systems is related to the design of any kind of systems, because all systems will be intelligent. Buildings will be intelligent, electromechanical systems will be intelligent. So it's very, very important to study design as a process that goes from knowledge to application. Okay, and here I'm distinguishing design from engineering, because engineering involves design but involves other activities. So I will finish with this slide by saying that it's very important that we study design as researchers and academics, and also we explain the importance of applying rigorous design techniques. And I know that there are people who say that design is a creative action and cannot be formalized. I don't agree with that. And here I think it's important also our responsibility as system designers and as researchers. The obvious question is whether, just to paraphrase Voltaire, I think, okay, are we living in the best of all possible cyber worlds? I think it's far from being the case, and we have to strive to have a better cyber physical world. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I suggest that now we move to the question and to the discussion with question and answer. So maybe Bob Kahn is going to join us on the scene and on the podium, and maybe we can take a look. So as a reminder, if you are following us on the internet, and thank you again to the Internet Society, you can tweet your question, and we will come up with a selection of the question tweeted on the internet in the mid-time of this discussion. Second thing, so you can ask questions also in the room. There will be someone with a mic going around. Just show your hand, and as a reminder, keep your question brief and short. Sorry, I was looking for the word. And remember to ask a question, not just comments. Thank you very much.
On? Yeah, it is. Okay. Before we get into the question and answer part of this, I'd like to make a few opening remarks, both to set the context and to hopefully encourage a stimulating discussion. First of all, I'd like to say, Professor Sifakis, that was a very broad-ranging talk you gave. I don't know how many in the audience really understood quite the scope of what he talked about, but having been in this business myself for a very long time, I have one regret, which is that he doesn't have another hour or two to give us the answers to all the questions that he's posed. His own background is in formalization of systems and provability, and we're really a long way from doing that in general. There's been a lot of progress made to date, and one of the questions that I think we really ought to get into is to what extent that we can apply formalisms to what's going on within the next 5, 10, 15 years and have it make a difference somewhere. I was also asked to also say a little bit about the internet itself, so that when we open it up for questions, we can talk about the evolution of the internet from its original stages to the present and where it might go in the future. So let me start by saying that when I began working on computer networking, and it was quite a while ago, we started out by connecting things. Those things were mainly big time-sharing computers in the early days, and shortly thereafter, other kinds of things like printers and the like, some specialized devices. In the 1970s, we had dozens of experimental computers. Typically, these were, well, I would say workstations. LANs too started to show up. We had a very limited number of applications that were widespread, mainly electronic mail applications, file transfer protocol, and a few others. But by the 1980s, we had gotten up to hundreds of things that were connected. And that, to us, seemed like a lot at the time. Today, it's literally a drop in the ocean. But when the internet rolled out, and we had very few things to do at the time except make use of the old applications, but it was all based on the rollout of TCP, which became TCP/IP, and that was between January 1st of 1983 and roughly June of the same year. By the end of the 1980s, I think I don't know the exact numbers here, so don't hold me to them, but I want to say we had probably many hundreds, if not thousands, of things connected. And by the time we got into the 90s, it was probably in the tens of thousands. We had enough things connected that cyber threats started to be a concern. We had some examples of that before, but it wasn't that widespread, but it seemed to accumulate, mainly because we now had so many things. But these were tens of thousands. We now started to see personal computers in larger sense. I mean, the early personal computers weren't network capable really, but by then, in the 90s, we had started to see laptops. We got introduced to graphics and color, and of course, the web showed up. By the 2000s, we had gone probably to millions of devices by then, and thousands of LANs, and we started to, see desktop machines and servers, and later even tablets. So the cyber threats started to increase pretty dramatically because there were more players in the game. If you're only dealing with 100 players, you may even know them all by first names. When you're dealing with millions, you can't possibly know them all. Today, the numbers of devices and their users are probably measured somewhere around 3 billion. It might be, if you added the mobile and the fixed stuff, it might be a little bigger, but it's a significant fraction of the world's population, but it's not most of the world's population quite yet, or it doesn't seem like it is. So with all these increasing cyber threats, people are now spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to detect them, how to thwart them, and so forth. You saw an estimate that Professor Sifakis had, I guess it was from Gartner, that said there might be was it 26 billion devices by 2020? I've seen other estimates that say it might be 50 billion, and even some others that say it might be as much as 100 billion. Well, if you try and compare 100 billion or 50 billion with a few million, I think the potential for threats and possible damage that can be done is going to be even much larger. Maybe we can't even contemplate it, what it could be. You saw some examples he gave about, was it your refrigerator and your grill? I forget which two things, but you know, kitchen appliances of all kinds could be attacking your heating system, and who knows what could happen within the household. And if you're dealing with security systems, door locks, or autonomous systems, people are now talking about airplanes that can be flown autonomously with secure connections to those. These are actually pretty big things. In fact, I would describe them more like the professor did. These are systems, and what we're really talking about is how we talk both to and between autonomous information systems of all kinds. And that's a very big challenge. We're not likely to provide a formalism for it because we couldn't even describe what it is except in very generic terms. So when I look at what we're talking about, to me, the IoT is still the internet. We're still talking about accessing things. We're still talking about accessing information about things. And there's nothing special about the fact that that information comes from a device that happens to be small and in your pocket, and that device might be really big and in a computing center. But this is a marketing opportunity, and it's a way for industry to put its mark on the world. It's like cloud computing was, again, another marketing strategy to get into access to distributed systems. I'm all for that, just as long as you understand the terminology isn't necessarily inventing something new. It's creating a new opportunity for people to make use of existing technology, maybe in better ways. So I had just a few other comments I wanted to make, and then we'll go into the Q&A. First of all, this issue of security is always going to be with us. There is no single solution that's going to solve everything for everybody all at once. It is ultimately a tension, a creative tension between the needs of systems and the private sector to have foolproof security without backdoors and trapdoors and things like that, and the need for law enforcement and national security to have a good handle on keeping control of their countries. So I think that's not going to be solved very easily. And when people say we didn't put it in the internet in the early days, I can tell you it was not for lack of trying. It was just hard to make happen then, and it's been hard every step of the way to do it in, let me say, a comprehensive kind of solution. Second thing is that the discussion that he made about system design, that I think is kind of the sweet spot for the kind of things that he's done in his past, as I understand it, because what you'd like to do is to take a design and be able to show that what you actually did relative to that design actually does what it's supposed to do. And this issue of provability becomes difficult. For something like the internet, that would be almost the holy grail of what we could do. So instead of figuring out what can happen on this wire or what boxes should go where, if we could, like we did with the Bell system, and I say we meaning not me personally, but the collection of researchers working on it and engineers, they said, okay, for this system, we have some objectives. How much time it takes to set up a call, what fraction of them don't get through. They were not objectives about what wires go where or what particular kind of technology was used, and then you could engineer it to meet that objective. We don't have a way to do that for the internet today, and I think if we could do that, if you could figure out a way to say, here is a set of global objectives that if you manage to these objectives and implement to those objectives, all the other issues would be essentially provably solved. That would be a great thing to do. Let's see, I also wanted to point out that in trying to get to interoperability between these independent information systems, standards are going to be important. And we have to be careful that we don't constantly try and reinvent and reinvent and reinvent. Because sometimes you don't need to, the old can work, and sometimes you really do need something new, and you ought to know why. But if we do have an interoperability standard, the standard that I would like to see is one that is both scalable and extensible, because today it is so hard to change interfaces to systems that when you try and do something really simple, like go from a 32-bit IP address to a 128-bit one, which is just a parameter change without a basic architectural change. We're now 20 years in and counting, and I don't know when we'll get to the point where everybody implements it. That's just a parameter change. If you try and do something more fundamental, it's going to be hard. So I think the interfaces really need to be scalable and extensible, and to me that translates into being really based on the use of identifiers. Now, it didn't come out in the discussion, but when we talk about things, one of the most important things is to be able to identify the things. And whether we think about doing it by name or IP address, we're going to be dealing with so many things that if we think broadly about it, we're not going to be able to use every possible identifier system that's ever been invented in the past for everything. We are going to need to have a more uniform way of talking about that. So that's a very important issue, and it's one that I've been dealing with in the context of a number of other attributes, like combating counterfeiting, for example. There's a major concern on the part of many people that things that get entered in the world, whether these things are physical things or electronic or devices, that we be able to manage the counterfeiting side of it. That's a big problem in food supply. It's a big problem in knockoff devices of one sort or another. So the thing we've been working on is called the digital object architecture. I'm not going to go into that because that's a specific approach, and one that I happen to favor, but there'll be lots of other approaches that come up from other people. So let me just mention a few of the questions that occur to me. I pose them because these are ones we don't have the answers to, so don't come back and ask us these, but I just want to let you know what they are. One is, given all these things, whether it really is 26 billion or 100 billion or whatever, how are we going to manage all these things and the information about them? And can we converge on a kind of an agreed approach, and how can that be made scalable and extensible? Second, how can we incorporate and how can we agree upon what to incorporate by way of security? How far do we go, and how do we balance these tensions between, as I said before, the needs of the private sector and those of law enforcement and national security? How do we deal with interoperability? Various people have different suggestions, but if everybody doesn't agree on one approach, you've got a very fragmented approach. Fortunately for the internet, we got one approach to interoperability at the communications level. We have the same challenge now, and we're many years down the pike. So lots more people have a strong interest in how that comes out. Will there be special requirements for the kinds of devices that historically we didn't deal with, like sensors, for example, whether they be fixed and attached to a wall or mobile and walking around with you in your smartphones or someplace else? How do we authenticate the sensor data? That is, if you go onto the net and get some data, how do you know it's actually the data that's relevant to what you thought you were asking, or some substitute data that came from a different sensor that was replaced? What does all of this imply about the need for keeping the data around, for archiving it, for being able to search it, and for researchers to be able to use it in the distant future? And finally, this is probably not the right time to have this discussion, but I just wanted to say that the economic implications of all of this are really profound, I think. And so while we didn't really understand the economic implications of the internet when we started, we barely understand them today, and this is going to change everything once again because of the numbers. So how are we going to get our arms around the economic implications of what's going on for each and every one of the countries that might be involved in all of this? So that's by way of just teeing up. This is a question and answer period. We can take questions from everyone. I'm tempted to want to just monopolize the whole session with questions for Professor Sifakis. I'm going to not do that. So I'm going to rely on questions from the audience, unless it gets, unless you're all shy and unwilling to ask some outrageous questions. I won't do that. So let's start that right now and see where we go. Thank you.
Yes, I have my own here.
You want to use that one? This one's on too.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
I would like to open it up for questions, and since our host is over here, I would like to ask him if he has a first question he'd like to ask. I'll give him the opportunity.
No, thank you.
Pass on that. Okay.
So I think we have a question over here.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Okay, Panagiotis Anastasiadis up in Thessaloniki. So I wanted to ask a question. You both covered the security issues. How about privacy?
Okay. Let me say that security is a much hotter topic than privacy, because I mean the experience shows that people can accept violations of their privacy. They are already accepting. Okay, I mean we have a model on this a social network model. You have a kind of tacit contract between the users and the providers of the services. So people are giving up some of their privacy, okay, against some services of more or less good or bad quality, okay? But I think that privacy is still an issue, of course, but security is a much more serious issue, okay? Because you can have some threats that can be very, can have very severe consequences, okay? So very well-known examples, you have, say, a pacemaker, and it's, okay, you have some wireless connection and somebody can intrude and, okay, you can be killed, okay? Or you can have attacks that against the critical infrastructure of a nation, okay, and things like that, okay? So security is a much more more important issue, okay? Of course, privacy also is an issue, but security is much more important, and safety, I believe, okay?
So I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'd like to ask a follow-up to that question.
Yes.
Which is, let's assume you had a pacemaker.
Yes.
Okay, hope you don't. But let's say
No,
you
I
have.
don't have so far,
Okay.
yes.
And let's say your pacemaker was a thing on the internet. Would you be comfortable with every person on the planet in particular be able to send messages to your pacemaker in the hopes that your pacemaker will fend them all off? And do you think we can ever really achieve privacy against those who
No, but-
want to invade your privacy?
But threats against my pacemaker are a matter of safety and security, okay? It's not a matter of privacy. That people know that I have a pacemaker, this is okay. This is not such a big issue. Better not to know that I have a pacemaker. But if they can have access to my pacemaker and they can act on some parameters, okay, that's much more dangerous.
But that's unacceptable, right?
That's unacceptable. But you see that this can happen today with pacemakers that have wireless features.
But
okay?
in the future, if your pacemaker, if you ever had one, and
Yes.
anybody knew about it, was connected to the internet, you would have that problem in spades, right?
Yes. But it already, I mean, if you have indirectly will be connected to the internet or to some local network, and then by extension, okay, if we have the Internet of Things, it will be accessible through the internet, okay? So today you have devices that are accessible through the internet because they have some IP address, okay? So my camera, okay, if it has an IP address, it's accessible, okay, through the internet. Yes.
I have a follow-up on that, if you don't mind. Patrice Lyons, General Counsel, CNRI. If you have, and I've seen people say, well, the way you enforce privacy rights is through security. But if you look at it as a system approach from a technical, where you have the information in the pacemaker that interacts with, say, a dispensing for the drug, all right? And you want to make sure that that drug information is very accurate. So there's access controls, and that's built into the, sometimes it's a PKI-based system or something that would actually protect the actual data itself. So in fact, when we're talking about privacy, it's just one of a number of access controls parameters. For example, you could have access to the world for your pacemaker, which you certainly wouldn't want, or access to your doctor, but then only for particular purposes. So privacy may be something just too amorphous for this perhaps technical part of it.
Okay, I'm not sure I understood the question very well. So the question is about what is privacy exactly, or whether it can be defined in some precise manner, privacy?
As part of, you secure the rights and the access controls, and
Yes.
part of it is implicit. What are the prohibited activities? So you can say that's part of your privacy. You can prohibit the access to your pacemaker from your cousin Joe. You can say, my cousin Joe can't come near my pacemaker, because you're managing the data itself.
Well, I think, maybe I should respond to this by saying
Okay.
that it's one thing to say what the rules are, it's another thing to have a system that accurately and reliably and continuously does exactly what you say it should do. One possibility is you live in a world where every piece of data absolutely everywhere is encrypted, and so the only people who can ever get it get encrypted information. So that in order to do anything with it, they'd have to be able to crack the codes. That doesn't mean they can't be cracked, but that's one way to deal with it. But it makes these devices more complex. It makes them harder to function unless they can function on the encrypted data, and people are working on that as a possibility. But
Yes.
take your point.
Yes, but encryption does not guarantee security. We know this. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take some more questions.
Yes.
Hello, Professor. I'm Jeffrey. My question is about standardization. You gave an example in your presentation about General Electric, and you have a slide on their standardization process. Could you just tell us more about the behavior of these giants in terms of standardization?
The behavior of?
Of the giants, of a big company like General Electric? Because they're putting sensor in power plants, they're putting sensor in...
Okay. I think I get it. Okay. So I think that standardization is a very, very important issue. And each company has its own strategy regarding standards, because standards are non-neutral, okay? So each company is promoting its own technology, its own standards. And one of the reasons we cannot reach convergence and homogenization of the networking infrastructure is because there is no agreement about what is important, what protocol is important, and how to homogenize this. Okay, so behind all this standardization discussion, you have at stake interests. And it's clear that if a standard is adopted, and of course standards are adopted not only by say standardization organizations. Some standards are adopted in some de facto manner, just because you are offering a solution that is satisfactory for the majority of people, and this wins, okay? But the problem of standards is a very, very important one, and they are, to have an agreement on common standards is very, very important, okay, to achieve interoperation of devices and of services, okay. Yes, you wanted to ask something?
Go ahead.
If you have a question, go ahead, and where's the mic?
I'll continue the Greek theme. I'm Christina Iotis. To the extent that there are varying internet governance efforts around the world, different combinations of people, how are they playing into the development of the Internet of Things, as well as the various consortia for standards, because there are multiple consortia for standards as well?
Okay, there is, I mean, you have different okay, different associations, different clubs. They are promoting technologies, they are promoting protocols, they are promoting different types of middleware. It's something that is very, very complex, okay? We have different players playing at different levels, okay? At telecommunication level, at software technology, even programming technology. So you have a lot of players and a lot of many different scenes, okay? So it's a very, very complicated game, okay? It's not, and there is no arbitration. I mean, it's a very, unless I am mistaken, but I don't think that there is any body arbitrating or deciding about how all the conflicts are resolved or may be resolved.
So let me just simply say that the internet is a very distributed and complex system, that it has lots of components. I mean, the internet itself, to me, is a set of protocols and procedures for connecting different components. And those components are networks and computers and devices and applications. It's what makes it all work together. It's kind of a global information system where it helps to flow the information to the right place. Mm-hmm. Having said that, there are probably tens of thousands of organizations involved in being in charge of managing, overseeing different components within the internet. Every country has many of them, and there's very little that seems to me one should do to try and intercede with the rights of a party who produces the component and is managing it to say about what they can and cannot do unless it affects something globally. Now, that's worthy of discussion, and to me, in the world of internet governance, what there needs to be is a way to have serious issues brought up that can be discussed in a global forum. And we've got some of that. The unfortunate part is that it all began, in fact, I was at the very first World Summit in Geneva in 2003, which was represented by 150 or 200 different countries, and senior leaders, sometimes the head of state in those countries. And they were all talking about the importance of the internet to their future and their economy and the like, but the single question that came up was who's in charge? As if, if the question was about the world economy, what would the answer be? Who's in charge of the world economy? Who's in charge of the weather? Who's in charge of all these important things? Are sort of the combination of lots of things that work together. In the case of the world economy, it's, business deals and regulations and rules that apply pairwise and generally between the parties that are involved. And so somehow it got all focused around ICANN as an organization that was set up years ago to help manage domain names and IP addresses and some of the protocol parameters. And frankly, the fact that the internet continues to work today is kind of just a hallmark of the fact that has been working well. So my view has been that's not the thing to be focusing on. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But there are lots of other global issues that we really should be focusing on, and I wouldn't call them internet governance. I mean, if it was my choice, I liked this lady over here on the left wants to define them as discussions on public policy issues of common interest or something like that. That's really what it is. Maybe that's the wrong exact description, but it's really not about governance in the normal sense of that term, that there's somebody in charge of governing. It's how you make all these things work together, how people's voices get expressed. If there are issues, how do you have a dialogue about them and figure out what the right long-term solutions are.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Mina Pham. I'm the Counselor for Science and Technology in this embassy. You mentioned artificial intelligence, and you refer to the brain functioning for decision making. And I was wondering whether in your field and in the Internet of Things, you take any inspiration from neurosciences?
From neural sciences?
Neurosciences.
Okay, so certainly there are some artificial intelligence techniques that are inspired from neural science and we talk about, yes, bio-inspired or neural-inspired computing, yes, and there are some learning techniques, of course, and there is some, I think we can learn a lot from neural sciences and biosciences, yes. Yes, there is a question whether.
First of all, I want to thank you both for your presentations. It's always very inspiring. And there are many questions I have, but I wanted to go now back to the item that we talked about, standards. For networks, there was IDF, and then when we started talking about bringing multiple platforms together, there were bodies like the Global Grid Forum that, in a sense, try to, in a sense, create some standards in the other layers, in addition to the network layer. Then cloud computing took over, and there doesn't seem to be, although NIST, for example, is in the US the standards body, there doesn't seem to be a more comprehensive body that has been created to, in a sense, bring a lot of the standardization communities together. And in your view, why hasn't been done, and who can take the leadership, or what ideas are there to create such a body that creates the kind of standards for what we call today the Internet of Things?
So the question is, who creates the standards and how the standards are created?
What can we do now to create?
Well, you have different kinds of standards. You have societies that propose standards. You have organizations like the NIST, or you have International Telecommunication Union that are proposing standards for telecommunications. Many organizations propose standards, and also we have the ad hoc standards, I mean de facto standards, okay? Somebody is proposing some reference architecture, and the people are using it, and they are happy, and they adopt it, okay? So this game of standards have many different players. Now, I would like to say that regarding safety and security, there is an agreement on standards, okay? And these have to do with the development techniques that are applied to systems when they are produced, okay? And you have international security standards. So in Europe, these are called the common criteria, for instance. We have 7 different levels of security. You have standards for cars. You have standards for aircraft, for instance. Safety standards for aircraft. This is DO something 17 standards. So you have standards that are applied probably also for medical. You have some standards that are applied by certification organizations or certification authorities, okay? So you have standards, different types of standards. Standards just for engineering practices or that are recommended, and standards that are enforced somehow, okay? Yes.
So I would add to that. This is a question that we could deal with for hours, but let me say that standards are basically developed when people need common approaches to deal with the solution of a problem, and sometimes these standards need to be implemented in the field in very fixed ways. Like if you need to have a plug that fits in, you need a standard for that. So anybody who built a plug knows it will fit into the socket that it was supposed to go into. You need a standard for the socket. When you're dealing in the informational world, it's very different. And this is an area, as I said before, we have a lot of experience with. So, but let me give you one example. Let's say you have a medical community that comes up with standards in medicine. You have an artificial intelligence community that comes up with standards for representing intelligence. You have a community that knows about civil engineering, not one that knows about atomic physics, whatever they are. They come up with their own standards for representing and dealing with things in that field. There doesn't need to be a global standard about that, because there almost can't be. It's got to be done by the people who are most knowledgeable about those sub-areas. What you can agree on is a way that everybody can use to represent their information. And that's got to be done in a level of abstraction that anybody who got something would say, okay, I understand how they package, I don't know what's in there, and it wasn't ever documented necessarily, but if I can look at the entries in a standard object description and see, well, this has got an identifier that says what type of thing this is, and here's the value for it, and I can resolve the type to figure out what kind of value I'm getting, then it could be anything. And furthermore, one of the entries can say, here is the metadata schema that I'm using to describe all that. So it doesn't even have to be known in advance. You could figure it out at night. If you're an atomic physics specialist in your kitchen that night and codify it somewhere and tell people what the identifier was, and now when you produce that information, you can say, here is the schema that I used for that. People could then resolve that, get it online, and therefore know how to interpret it. And there never is what you would consider a traditional standards body. It's just a different process that's used. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. Some of it needs to actually get built into the hardware and in physical form, and some of it can be dealt with in this other way, and we're going to find intermediate forms where, you know, people describe it in other ways, but it's not actually built in.
Well, if it's okay, thank you very much again for this
Okay,
discussion.
I wanted to say something because I disagree with.
You disagree?
Okay, at some point.
All right.
At some point.
Now we're
I'd
livening
like
it
to
up.
express my,
So
my disagreement very quick.
I've got another hour. We could.
Okay. Okay. Let me say that you said that the Internet of Things will be nothing but, say, the Internet as we know it, or no? I misunderstood.
I didn't say that. I said we started out with things.
Yes.
And it got bigger. We had more things, and we got more things. The Internet has changed constantly as we've gone through, and will continue.
Will change also the paradigm. So today, most of the interactions in the Internet are according to the client-server model. So I'm a client, I'm requesting a service, I have an answer, etc. And the idea is that I like, at least, and this completely different, makes something completely different of the Internet of Things from the Internet, is that we will have closed control loops, okay? So we will have devices interacting continuously, okay? And that's the idea, the strong integration and automation of services. Now, if this is not achieved, we will have something that will be very similar to the Internet as we know it today, but the vision is to have strong integration of services and automation, so without humans in the loop.
I would push back in the following way. First of all, there are many applications that run that I wouldn't view as pure client-server. The web, which is one of the most widely used, is a client-server model.
Yes.
So if you're talking about the web, then I would agree with you, and we might have to move to something else if the web wanted to evolve in a different way to deal with this. On the other hand, I mean, my colleague Vint Cerf and I wrote a paper back in the 1980s, which was widely disseminated. It was called, it was subtitled The World of Nobots, and we're talking about mobile programs that would run around. We called them Nobots for knowledge robots.
Yes.
And they were anything but a client-server model. They would kind of be intelligent little programs that you would, you know, launch into the net, and they go from place to place, maybe merge and rendezvous with others and come up with results and bring them back. So I think you have to be, you have to acknowledge that there are multiple options that people have proposed. Some of them have been implemented, but the Internet has been in constant flux, really, in detail ever since it was started, and all the underlying components have scaled up by a factor of something like 1 million. Processor speed, communication speed, memory, and you know, we might find easily another 1,000. And if you think about contributions in technology and history that have scaled up by a factor of 1 million or 1 billion, you won't find many. Maybe you won't find any.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. That's the word of the end. And thank you for the audience. We had almost a non-controversial discussion, and that's very nice on video. Now I have a couple of great news. The good one is that we have these two gentlemen from some time to continue the discussion of the record, so you can now ask all the controversial answer, and you may get a question, and you may get controversial answer in that matter. And the second one is that we have a few things to drink and to enjoy outside, including French wine, so I'll see you there. Thanks.
Okay.